All right, we are recording.
Okay. Temple Times just went out, so people should get reminders for
I saw them, yeah, a couple of days ago.
what?
Yeah, you sent it. I saw, maybe it was Sisterhood. I saw another one
That was
before.
Sisterhood. That wasn't me.
Oh,
Yeah, Temple Times just went out. I posted something on Facebook, so hopefully more people will hop in.
they will.
Okay. Because I have to hop out. I got a bunch of stuff I got to do.
No problem. Thank
But
you so much.
yeah, no problem. All right. Have fun.
See ya. So, how is the garden,
Oh,
Hazel? How's everything with
the
the
gardens
beautiful
doing.
yard?
Oh yeah, yeah. We've had a lot of rain. It's been good for it.
Mhm.
Barbara hasn't been feeling too good, so she hasn't been doing any work out there.
Oh,
The weather kind of controls her. I won't say controls, but it does contributes to a lot of her pain when there's a lot of rain
oh,
next to her. So
that's not good.
no, no, she suffers from this fibro.
Malaysia or Delta.
Whatever. Yeah, I know. I can never fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia. I've got terrible tickle in my throat here.
Well, if you want to, we have 10 minutes. If you want to get up and make yourself a hot cup of tea or
Yeah, I'm gonna go get
something
something.
sparkly.
Yeah, I got water, but that's not doing it.
No, you need something to hot or
Computer.
carbonation.
Ellen,
Yep,
I have a question, kind of a silly one.
those are good.
I'm not all that techy for some reason, except constant contact. Um, you know where now it just has my name on the screen?
Correct.
Because Chris, like most of the time, I look, I haven't put on eyebrows in months,
Well,
and
that's what you said.
it's like, bleh. But so, but I've noticed, like at Temple, most people know who I am, but like my League of Women Voters and some of my other meetings where I don't know everybody, I've noticed that some of the people have pictures as well as names in their little box. So not like a video, but a photo.
Okay.
So like a photo and Rhoda London in the black box.
So the
I'm,
question is, how do we get that picture in the box for you?
yeah, that's what I want to know.
I'll have to find out.
I've done the picture, and I can it seems like I either get the picture or I get the name, but I don't get both. At Temple, like I said, it's not a big deal. But you know what other organizations that have been having Zoom meetings, it's kind of nice.
All right, well, I can find out for you.
Okay.
Here's somebody. Sophia is joining us. Hello, Sophia.
Hi. Sophia?
Yes, hi.
Hi, this is Rhoda. I noticed that Mary is one of like the people for the Eve Awards, Mary Pentel.
Oh, really? What kind of award?
I think it's the Eve Award. She's a finalist for some kind of an award.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
women's organization.
Very nice. I was glad to see her name. Mazel tov. You'll have to find out about it.
I have to. She didn't tell me anything, but she usually tells me when it's something very important. She probably, if she's going to win, she will let me know.
Well, there are like 12 finalists for this. It's the Times Union, and they've done it for maybe 40 years. So whether she win or not, I don't know, but she's down to the 12 finalists.
I see.
So, the only reason I stopped going to where I used to was when I went on Medicare and Social Security. Then Medicare, I couldn't be a client anymore. But she's very competent, and I was so pleased to see her name. It's really a very nice compliment to her and her family.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. How you doing, neighbor?
I am doing okay. I am not really in quarantine because I go food shopping and things like that, but I am wearing a mask and also using the 6 feet distance. So
I have to say we're very fortunate in Sweetwater that we have beautiful places to walk and lots of nature and fresh air. It doesn't feel very confining. Hi.
Rhoda, I believe that our speaker wants to talk. Thank you. Sorry.
So Linda Wilkinson just joined us.
Hi, I didn't think this started till 2.
Well, we usually open up a little early so people can chat.
And Linda, are you also nominated for an award or receiving an award?
For the Leadership Jacksonville.
Yeah, Mazel Tov. Very, very nice. You
good.
Cindy, right?
Thank you.
You and Cindy?
I have an unstable
Linda, your screen froze. We got unstable, and then we heard nothing.
Right.
I have an unstable connection.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, anyway, congratulations. When I saw your name, I thought, woo, you and Cindy, how lovely.
thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, this is a time for everyone just to catch up and chat. I understand it's ice cream day over there
Ice cream day where?
at Fleetland.
I'm leaving.
Oh,
Which is nice. So yes.
Ellen, I have to depend on your mother to tell me things like the ice cream day.
Well, yeah, you say ice cream, she's going to be keenly aware of that. She's on it. But we have Leslie. Hi, Leslie.
Hello, hello everyone.
How are you?
Sandra.
Great.
Oh, Leslie. So the screen is set up so whoever talks is going to have the full screen. So that's why he's going to keep doing this. And then once Hazel starts, we'll see just Hazel.
Okay. Ah, here comes
Hi,
some
Susan. Hi.
people.
Linda, or hi, Leslie. Hi, Leslie. I see you there. Susan boards up.
You're going to have to go left.
Hi, Hazel.
So I'll change the view to gallery. There she is. And then we're going to get back to speak.
Hi.
So we have a few more minutes before we get started. That's a beautiful bed frame, Leslie. With the iron bed frame.
Oh, thank you. This is my guest bedroom in my office.
Very nice.
Hi, Hazel.
Junk on the right. Junk on the right and comforting on the left.
Because I remember when I was living in an apartment, people would say, "Are you going to get a sofa bed for guests?" I'm like, "Absolutely not." They're going to figure that one out.
I have a guest bedroom, but somehow now that I'm in a condo, it's kind of turned into a storage room. I don't know, with all my little projects and things.
Hi, Rhoda. Hi, Rhoda.
Hi.
How you doing? I
I'm
don't
fine.
see Rhoda. I just see her name.
And Ruthie Nachman. Hi, Ruth.
Yeah.
Hey, Roseanne.
Her audio is off. See if she can turn it on.
Sandra who?
Sophia. Hi, how are you? Hi. Hi, Sophia. I have one of your plastic dishes, and I was waiting to see you. Oh, really? Oh, it is. It is one of those, and I just thought I kept it there with your name there, but I've never seen you afterwards.
Judy Israel.
It or dispose of it, whatever you want. Judy Israel.
Yes, hi.
Toby. I see you.
Hello,
Hi.
everybody. Hi. Hi, all. Good to see everyone.
So you have Hazel, are you okay if we start just a couple minutes late?
No,
Let
that's
everyone
what
join us?
A couple of minutes late. I'm still trying to clear up this tickle in my throat.
All right, well, you take your time. Let us know.
We can relate.
You're the boss there, Ellen.
Bernie.
Hi, Ruthie.
Hello, how's
Hi, Ruthie.
everybody?
Hey, Bernie.
Hello.
Hey, there's Bernie. And there's my friend. There's Bernie. Bernie.
Bernie, Leslie, say hello.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi there.
Susan,
Hi, Leslie.
Hey, sis.
How you doing?
Thank God, everything, nothing good to report. And
Linda Wilkinson.
Nothing good and nothing bad. Is that what you said?
All right, it's just 2 o'clock. I'm going to go a couple extra minutes just to let people join us in case their clocks are a little slow. We're not in any rush.
Not these days. We
Gotta
certainly
say,
are.
We've got all day and all night.
Ellen.
Just about.
Karen Backelman was just on here, now she's gone.
She'll be back.
Ellen. Ellen, can you hear me?
Yes.
Ellen? I think I
And,
got Andrew logged
I
on.
heard they're changing the name of our high school to name it after Light Horse
It's like to
Harry
log on in
Lee.
here.
Linda, did you hear him?
Yeah, I'm there.
No, I couldn't. What did you say, Bernie?
I said they're changing the name of our high school. It's now going to be named after Light Horse Harry Lee.
I know, and I'm going to tell you, it really hurts.
Yeah.
It
I
really
know.
hurts.
I'm sure
I
he's
didn't
sitting
go
over
there,
this
but I
grave.
lived right by there, went to Southside just before I entered Lee. But my sister went to Lee, Rosalie Markowitz.
High
Linda, I think you
School.
might have known her.
Linda and Bernie were two of the stars.
Yeah,
Rosalie
Well,
was.
Rosalie's not here.
but she wasn't a
So-
star.
Rosalie's not here, but yes,
She
Rosalie. I'm
almost made
sure.
cheerleader till they found out she was Jewish, and that really happened. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Yeah.
Like Jews and
Toby, say that again. She was a
I said she
cheerleader.
almost made cheerleader till they found out she was Jewish.
Oh my God.
Oh.
I'm not kidding. They used
Wow.
to they, Lee's
Interesting.
cheerleading squad used to be something like 4 seniors, 3 juniors, 2 sophomores, whatever the thing was. And she was like one of the 4 seniors, one of the 3 juniors, I don't remember. And when they found out she was Jewish, they changed the number and took 1 less of whatever she was and 1 more of the other group. Literally happened, but it was very, they had sororities. The Jewish girls didn't get into the sororities for the most part. One sorority, I think. Isn't that
That's
right?
true.
Linda?
The Jewish girls didn't get into the sororities.
Yeah, they didn't get to be cheerleaders either.
It's just at Wolfson or
I was
DuPont or where?
secretary.
Yeah. Now, I didn't go to Lee. We moved to Glen, we moved
secretary
to
of
Southside
school,
just
and he
before my
was-
Well,
high school.
I did go out for cheerleading one year. I don't know why, but I did. However, the reason I wasn't chosen is not because I was Jewish.
She actually was chosen. Yeah. She did not look Jewish at all. I don't, and nobody knew.
But Markowitz is kind
Just
of
didn't-
the
I just
Blonde
didn't
hair
look-
and blue eyes, yeah.
I
I
just didn't
don't
look
like
like a cheerleader.
I don't like the word. She does not look like Jewish. I
Well,
always
but that's what
how do
fooled
the
them.
Jews look like?
No, it's not that. That's what fooled them. That's what I'm telling you. I think they didn't have names,
Blonde, doesn't
but
look
because
Jewish.
because of her, the way she looked, they never even suspected that she was. That's what I mean. I just mean that that's in their minds, that's one of the things that I think kept her in as long as it did. But I don't know, Linda, are you aware of any Jewish cheerleaders at Lee?
I'm not aware that there was any of the Jewish girls I knew were ever the least bit interested in being a cheerleader. And frankly, I couldn't even do a cartwheel. So I don't think religion had much to do with it.
Going back to
Hi,
the
Karen
work,
Dackelman.
Hello.
going
Hey,
back
Karen,
to
you
the work,
Discovered I get
doesn't
12
look
bucks
Jewish.
on my laptop, but only 9 on my iPad, even though my iPad screen is bigger.
Okay.
What now?
I'm going to ask everyone, Hazel, would you like to start now?
I'm ready anytime you are.
Okay, so
Okay, that's what I'm going to do. And
I'm going to turn off everybody's mic except for Hazel and mine. And they will be turned back on at the end for comments and questions. And we are in speaker mode. And for some reason, I'm not going full screen. That's okay. I'm going to start with the intro. I don't know why. Well, for Judith Israel seems to be full screen here. Hazel, could you say something? Let me see if it works.
Oh, yeah, well.
Okay, it is right. For some reason, I'm not getting full screen, which is fine. I'm going to just start our introduction to our second Inside the Archives with Hazel Mack. We're going to start, it's 1867, and this is where we're beginning this week's program on the beginning of religious practices for Inside the Archives with Hazel Mack. Hazel will cover the Society for the Worship of God, which is how the organization was formed and who was instrumental in making it happen. She will take us all the way through to the building of the first temple. Sadly, a fire that burned 146 city blocks destroyed the first temple. But with tenacity and determination, the extraordinary founding members and community raised the necessary funds to rebuild a second temple just 4 months after the fire. Many of our congregants are direct descendants of the founding members of the congregation Ahavat Hesed. For example, Hazel will talk about Charles Slager, Esquire, who opened up his home for worship before there was a temple, and that the Wilkinsons are descendants of the Slagers, and Linda is with us today. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ellen. I'm going over the dates again as to we went through. We started with 1846 all the way up to finished with around the 1860s. So starting with 1867 was when we started seriously discussing a synagogue. So it was that the Israelites of the city met at the residence of Charles Slager and proceeded to organize a society for the worship of God. Mr. Slager stated that the object to be the organization of a society for the worship of the only true God, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. At once, the meeting proceeded to organize by electing the following officers: Charles Slager, President; F. Edriho, Vice President; and Morris Dolinsky, Treasurer. They had already subscribed for the support of a teacher or rabbi, the sum of $1,600, and will soon issue a call. The leaders of the 1867 congregation failed to seek a charter and were never officially recognized as a congregation because of that oversight. However, they did set a pattern of worship and organization, which has continued to this day. And it wasn't until January the 19th of 1882 that a charter was filed. Morris Dolinsky was elected temporary chairman. The first task was to select a name. Ahavat Hesed was chosen by the committee and translated meant lovers of justice. It was agreed that the congregation be governed by the president, a vice president, a treasurer, a secretary, and a board of 5 trustees. Now, you count that out and consider what we have now. We have a president, 2 vice presidents, a treasurer, a secretary, and a board of 20 trustees. Officers named to serve were Morris Dolinsky, president; Saul Benjamin as vice president; S. Rich Roller as treasurer; and G.W. Markins as secretary with 5 trustees. A total of 30 members were considered charter members. But early records indicated clearly that even at the beginning, members saw their temple materialize not alone through their own efforts, but with the concrete help of non-Jewish elements of the growing city. An editorial written just 5 days after the election of officers said, "Let the favors they have granted others be shown to them also." Every businessman on Bay Street can and ought to help this cause, and not a dollar will be expended in this direction that will not be deservedly bestowed. Who will start the ball rolling? Well, this question was answered several days later on January 29th, when the local paper printed a list of donors, some of whom were not co-religionists, who have without solicitation subscribed the amounts set opposite their names. The contributions were coming in and plans were being made for the erection of the first Jewish house of worship on the east coast of Florida. With Delinsky, Vice President Saul Benjamin, Treasurer A. Wiswoler, Secretary George Markins, and Collector, which I would assume was Treasurer, Harris Burlock leading the way. But other things were also happening in Jacksonville at the same time. The Hebrew Benevolent Society, already a well-founded group, they elected Jacob Huff as their president a month after the Temple of Hesed was chartered. I was going through a lot of, I'm getting clips and bits of information. I was going through the early writings of Beatrice Pizer, who wrote the first 50 years of the congregation's history, followed by Dawson Oppenheimer, who wrote the 75th anniversary, or the history of the first 75 years of the temple. Of course, we all know about our wonderful book that you may remember, written by Natalie Glickstein, has when she wrote the 100-year history. This has been wonderful information for everything that we have needed. And I get a lot of history from all of their writings. It's interesting because they write of the same things, but in a different way. Yeah. But getting back to the start of our temple, the religious school classes that were held in the Landauer home, and according to the temple historian, which in this case was Beatrice Pizer, May Landauer and Dee Dee Slager held a bazaar to raise funds for the temple. They were rewarded for their efforts by delivering the key to the completed building at its dedication. I think I talked about that at the last meeting. Meanwhile, Mr. Berkheim of Gainesville conducted religious services in the Ritzwaller residence. Rabbi Marx Moses arrived in Jacksonville on August the 5th, 1882, and was called upon immediately to perform a circumcision for the son of Mr. and Mrs. Rosenthal. He also presided at the bar mitzvah of Maxie Moses Kaufman on September the 9th, the first youngster believed to have observed that ceremony after the arrival of Rabbi Moses. The formal dedication of Temple Ahavot Hesed took place on September the 8th, 1882, with Rabbi Moses speaking to the assembled Jews of Northeast Florida. Though thy beginning be small, thy end shall greatly increase. Though today you are few in number, the future will show the rich golden harvest of the beginning you have so bravely made. Well, that goes back since 1882. So we have grown successfully. We have a very strong congregation with a lot more people than we ever thought we would have in this many. Our first synagogue was at Laura and Union Streets, and it reflected the European origins of the members. Yes, put up the picture now.
See if this can work.
Okay, the first temple. And when you see it, you'll see
Ellen's learning how to do this.
This is
There it is. Share.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Started a screen share. There we go. You'll see the great parking meters in the front. You have to understand that this building was built in 1882, and the Great Fire of 1901 demolished it, and it was rebuilt, the same location and the same style, same everything. And after we left that temple, we moved into another building, Laura and Ashley. The building stayed, and other religious organizations, that's the building we had at Laura and Ashley. I'm still talking about Ellen, I'm still talking about the first building here, okay? So, but the parking meters were there because this is a picture taken sometime in later years when other religious organizations occupied that building. The building stayed there until sometime in the mid-1980s. But the two oriental domes lifted their tapered points upward, and inside there were 28 seats and 2 rows of pews, giving a seating capacity of 400. Overhead hung chandeliers with a central corona of 36 gas jets. The synagogue cost $7,000, and there were 24 members. In keeping with the European Orthodox practices, some congregation, because of the oversight, they set a pattern of worship and organized. I've read that part. I've lost my place.
All right, I'm going to just jump in.
Please do. Please do.
The 1882, stop share. I have to.
Yeah.
Okay. So in 1882, some interesting facts. I'm going to back up a little. We found this out that the percentage of Jews in Jacksonville has not changed since the beginning of them coming here. In the 1880s, there were 130 Jews and 7,650 people living in Jacksonville. Jews made up 1.6% of the population. In 2018, with 16,000 Jews in Jacksonville and a city population of 900,000, the percentage of Jews is between 1.4 and 1.6%. So as the city grows, we stay the same. And yeah, it's like we need to increase. Silly fact: as Jewish life began to take hold, B'nai B'rith was organized in 1877, founded in New York City in 1843. But back to this, the temple we're going to come up to. It's 1882, and Thomas Edison, he starts the first commercial electrical power plant, letting 1 square mile of Lower Manhattan. And the president of the U.S. is Chester Arthur. He succeeds James Garfield, who had been shot, killed by an assassin. And there are 2 other fascinating things. The first World Series game was Cincinnati beat Chicago 4-0. And it was our first Labor Day in New York City that year. So that's where we are in time.
Oh, well, winds of Reform Judaism started stirring early, and Jacob Bucky consented to be president of the congregation in 1886 on the condition that the congregation would accept many of the new reforms. Organ music had been introduced to the services as early as 1885, with Frederick Delius serving as an organist cantor. Delius had settled in Solana Grove to grow oranges and write music, but moved to Jacksonville to obtain work as a musician to eke out a living, and found Ahaveth Hesed. The immediate problem which confronted him was to secure financial independence. So when he was hired to sing in the choir and occasion playing the organ, after 6 weeks of this, it was not very profitable employment. A friend drew his attention to a newspaper advertisement who wanted a music master for his 2 daughters. Well, Delius applied for the post, and with glowing testimonials, including one from Rabbi Marks Moses, he obtained it. Although Delius did not spend much time in Florida, nor did he ever grow oranges, his music grew from his short stay in this area. Much of the influence of the African-American spirituals and folk tunes became the basis of his own music, much to the chagrin of people he came in contact with. In Solana Grove, he had his moment of illumination. His first composition, Zum Carnaval, or At the Carnival, was published in 1892. And so his talents had their beginnings in our area and was Temple's only Gentile cantor. Without a doubt, he was ahead of his time. A letter from Alexander Ritzwoller to Jacob D. Buckey on October the 11th, 1892. He said, "We had a reform minister here this past holidays. He officiated without the tallis, and half of the services he had no hat on, and the president and vice president was Mr. Philip Halley, and all the congregation had their hats off, except Julius Slager and our friend Mr. B.M. Bear, and the members were not struck by lightning. This all happened because I notified the minister by letter that I desire he should comply with reform usage and appear at the pulpit in citizen cloth, with no hat and no tallis on. So they compromised with me, as the English say, half and half." As our congregation grew and the temple became a little small and crowded, we built a second temple. We bought property at the corner of Laura and Ashley and built a new building. And so we know that there we go. And we had this building from 1910 until 1950. And many, if you can see on the bottom level, you see windows down near the sidewalk, and they had a vestry room downstairs, and many of the events took place there. We have pictures of Purim parties, and you see all the kids surrounded in that picture. I didn't put it up. I'm sorry I didn't put it up, but you could see pipes in the ceiling because they were down in the basement. Linda, you're on here, and I think you had mentioned one time, give Linda the microphone. Linda, you had mentioned one time of having some classes.
Find Linda's name.
In this, no, not that one, not
No,
that.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to, I have to undo stop share.
Yeah.
And then I have to open Linda's.
Yeah, Linda.
Mic. Linda, you're gonna unmute?
Linda, aren't you the one that said, or that
Okay, I think I'm unmuted.
There you go.
I think I'm unmuted now.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Linda, didn't you go to the old temple, the old temple at Laura and Union?
I was confirmed in the old temple.
Yeah,
and the downstairs, where you see those windows, the downstairs was where we had Sunday school. And all the Sunday school rooms were down there. And I just wanted to mention one other thing, that in the sanctuary, there was a balcony. And that was where David Stein used to.
Whoops, what happened?
It just freezes. The beach connections are always a little wonky. Linda, you're gonna have to pick up again. We lost you.
At what point?
David Stein. David Stein.
I was saying that with the balcony in the temple, David Stein got in trouble, the first of many times, got in trouble because he would go up there and drop the prayer books down on the heads of the congregation.
That's David Stein of Burger King fame. Well, as Linda was saying, they had their meetings and everything in Sunday school down in the basement, and it was soon they realized they didn't have much room for growth there. And the building, Ellen, you can bring up the next picture of the house. They, in 1927, were able to purchase the property at St. John and Mallory, and bought this beautiful, beautiful house in 1927. And in that house, they were able to have their meetings, their brotherhood and sisterhood, Sunday school, all their social activities could be held there because they had plenty of room. But this was sadly during the Depression years, and maybe I'm jumping a little ahead of some of the tales that I wanted to talk about, but I'll go on with this story. In the Depression years, the board elected to, because money was very tight, to lower the amount of insurance they had on the building to the amount owed on the mortgage. which they did to make it easier for them, and their payments would not have been so high on the mortgage. But unfortunately, in 1940, they had a German couple who were maintaining the building, and it was a particularly cold night, and the man went down and stoked up the furnace to get the place going, and I guess it got overstoked because they had a fire and the whole building just collapsed. They were able to get out. Nobody was lost, but again.
And Linda has a question.
Yeah.
And you just have to unmute yourself.
Who's unmuted?
Ask Linda, there you go.
Yeah.
Should I stop picture?
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Yeah, go ahead, Linda. Do you want to add to that? We've lost her.
Well, she'll be back in a second.
Yeah.
Not a question. It's
there
not
you
a
go,
question.
Linda.
All right. It's not a question. It's just a funny story I have to tell you about that. That Marty Sack told me years ago that one Sunday morning when he was about 8 or 9 years old, he got a telephone call from Hugh Glickstein. And Hugh said, "Marty, I've got the most wonderful news for you." Said, "Marty, I've got the most wonderful news for you." And Marty said, "What?" And he said, "The Temple home burned down last night and we don't have to go to Sunday school today."
Linda, did they go back to the other building to have their Sunday school classes then?
I remember going there. I remember Mrs. Cat.
Okay, I'll take it for a little bit. We'll go back to Linda in a minute. There.
So Linda, you want to try again? We lost you. Well, she's frozen again, so you can just keep going and then she'll unfreeze.
We kind of jumped a little ahead there because we were talking about the various buildings. And so I'll go back a little bit about what happened after the major fire of 1901. We've had so many fires and we're losing all our records, but the rapidity with which the members of the congregation went about rebuilding the temple, which meant so much in their lives at a time when their own personal resources were also wiped out, is really worthy of note in any history. The fire occurred on May the 3rd, 1901. On May the 7th, 1901, a special meeting was held at the home of Sig Hess for the purpose of laying plans for the rebuilding of the temple. On May the 12th, 1901, a committee of 5 consisting of Messrs. Furskutz, Benedict, Mack, Sable, Katz, and Brown were appointed to solicit subscriptions for this purpose. On August 29th, 1901, a meeting was called for the purpose of opening bids for the creation of the building and for awarding the contract. That the importance of music in the service was realized is proven by the fact that as early after the fire as September 29th, 1901, the president appointed a committee of Messrs. Kahn and Nowitzki to solicit subscriptions for the purpose of a pipe organ. An interesting note found in the minutes of this period was that in 1903, there was hired a soloist in the choir, a Mr. Joseph Schreiber, who is still a member of the Temple Choir. This was written by Beatrice Pizer for the 50th reunion. So he was still a member of the temple then when financial conditions permit the congregation to have a choir. The new temple was dedicated on April the 8th, 1902, while Rabbi Wittenberg was still the minister at a salary of $1,200 a year. $1,200 a year. Where's our treasurer on here? In 1809, we had 75 members at the temple. And we had, I don't know whether I can show this or not.
Hold it higher, a little higher. There you go. And pull it towards you just a bit. Okay. It's blurry, but yeah, just tell us what we're looking at.
It was a membership, October the 18th, 1909, listing the members. I mean, I'm not going to list them because there were 75 members in there, but I'm trying to see who. Max Oberdorfer was a member then. And of course, we have Douglas Oberdorfer, who is a member of our temple now. Benjamin, Simon Benjamin, we have Benjamins on the staff. Grunthal, we have Grunthals here, our members. J.L. Mack was my late husband's grandfather. So, of course, I'm still a member. There was Endell was a member, and Jean Benjamin comes down from Endell's. So you see there were a lot of the Barwald. I don't think we have any Barwald members now. But we had a lot of members. As time goes on, let's see, we've gotten to the two buildings. We had in 1917 the purpose of providing funds to take up the underlying mortgage on the temple property. This is the one down at Laura and Ashley. The Board of Trustees was authorized and directed to sell and issue bonds with interest coupons attached in the sum of $12,600. These bonds were bought by members of the congregation. The temple debt was paid off, and the bonds were gradually redeemed for each set of congregational minutes from 1920 until the bonds were burned at a most joyous ceremony. Tells of the drawing and retiring of a number of bonds. It's worthy to note that this time the efforts of the women who had been commented on by simply rising votes and letters of thanks heretofore, although fully recognized, were now taken cognizance of more tangibly by the adoption of a motion on April the 25th, 1920, that 3 women be elected to the Board of Trustees. It is fitting here that a tribute be paid to Rabbi Kaplan, who, anxious not to make the already heavy burden of the congregation any heavier, acted in a most commendable manner. When on October the 27th, 1920, the chairman of the Finance Committee submitted the board's recommendation on the budget, including the increase of the minister's salary to $4,000, and this was in 1920. Dr. Kaplan asked for the privilege of the floor and intimated that knowing the financial condition of the congregation, $3,600 would be sufficient. This was in 1920. It is also worthy to note here that on this date, an exception from the minutes to increase the expenses, many members, I've lost that one. Well, we'll forget that bit. Sorry. Get back to after the building burned. It was a tragedy. So everybody went back to the temple at Laura and Ashley. And it wasn't until the late 1940s, after the war, that they started work on building a new temple at St. John and Mallory.
Do you want me to show that one?
Put that one up, yeah. So in 1950, we had the new temple. After this house, there we go. And that was the temple. And if you look at those stained glass windows, right up at the very top there, those stained glass windows are in our current sanctuary on San Jose. There's 2 downstairs in the sanctuary. The other 2 are up in the old choir loft, which is where they used to have a choir sitting upstairs, but they got crowded and it got too hot up there for everybody. That's why they moved them downstairs. This place stayed there until 1979 when we moved into the sanctuary on San Jose.
Want me to put that up?
Yeah, put that one up. There we go. That was a building as it was built, and that's where it was. The only part that is still the same is the
windows.
You see the windows. Our front door is still basically in the same place, but the whole area is large. The sanctuary is still there in our windows. You see the other 2.
Yeah,
There's the other 2. Those are the other 2 stained glass windows. So we moved them with us. We don't have a picture. Unfortunately, I didn't think about that. We didn't have a picture of the sanctuary in Riverside with the doors that Marcel Bear made, but we have in our entrance lobby as we come into the congregation, into the temple, the doors that Marcel Bear made. She designed and painted and constructed them and made those doors, and they were up in the building for some time until we moved over to our current location. Let's see what else. I had something else here I was going to. I wanted to mention something about the Hebrew Cemetery at Washington and Union Street. The old city cemetery provided 30 burial sites, but by 1890, it was necessary to seek additional burial space. In that year, Temple Haveth Hesed acquired 3 acres of land adjoining Evergreen Cemetery. The major portion was divided into 69 lots, containing 8 graves and 2 sections of 60 single graves. The lots being divided by 5-foot walkways. A makeshift fence surrounded the area, and there were no paved walks or roads. It was known as the Hebrew Cemetery. The first burial in Evergreen was that of a child, Morris Cohen, on April 16, 1890. The pogroms of the 80s and 90s in Russia and Poland brought the first wave of Eastern European Jews to America. A small contingent, Singlin and families arriving in Jacksonville from Pushilot, Poland, and formed the nucleus of the Orthodox Jewish community in Jacksonville. The Finkelsteins, Gabe Finkelstein and his family came, he and his wife, and Linda, you come down from that clan, don't you?
I may open Linda up. Hold on.
Yes, open Linda up in there. Because Linda comes down.
Linda, we're going to unmute you again. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, Gabriel.
Yeah. Well, upstairs she goes. We're losing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
She'll come back.
She'll come back.
Gabriel. Gabriel and Sarah Finkelstein were my great-grandparents.
Yes.
And I remember the boarding house when I was a very little girl. I remember my father taking me there to visit them.
Neat.
Yeah, you remember that. All right. So there are a lot of families that came down from that, from Gabriel and what was her name? Sarah.
Sarah.
Sarah. I should remember that, because about half of there were 9 children. So some of them joined the temple, and the others leaned towards the more Orthodox, and then later into the Jacksonville Jewish Center and the conservative movement. So of that group, I think the Genziers are about the only ones still living that came down from that group.
Right. Well, I don't know if there are any Pankins. Well, the Pankins still.
Pankins, but they were part of the reform movement.
Oh yeah, well then because
so you got the Pankins, and there were quite a few in there. So you come from good stock. But tell a little bit about the who was it? It was the first Finkelstein, Neil. And he started the luggage shop, but it was called what was it? Linda, I'm losing you. Yeah, okay. Neil Finkelstein had a store. He sold a lot of leather goods.
It was a pawn shop actually down at Broad and Bay, and they did sell a lot of leather goods. And it eventually they moved to Forsyth Street, and it became the luggage shop. And then my father took it over when Neil died. But the other thing I would add about Neil, that was my grandfather, is that he was the chairman, he was the head of the Jacksonville Beach City Council, and was instrumental in changing the name from Pablo Beach to Jacksonville Beach. That was in 1921. They had a big house at Jacksonville Beach.
Nice.
Very good. I didn't know that, Linda. Thank you. What else can you tell about that time frame? Well, anyway, the luggage shop, after leaving Laura Street, moved up to Hemming Plaza. And they had a very beautiful shop up there, but it closed in early 2000.
Yeah, it was,
Library.
yeah, we closed in 2000. We had been in business for over 100 years. And the library went in there. So, and there was really no one to take over moving.
No, we have beautiful pictures of those, the leather shop hanging up in the archive room, in the display room. So thank you, Linda, for that. The fire, of course, devastated an awful lot of Jacksonville. And as you know, we have one of the things that I should have pointed out when I was showing you the list of the membership back in 1909, the edges of those papers that we have are singed, and they were probably salvaged out of the fire from the Temple home. It was a big fire of 1940 where we lost a lot of, so it's a wonder we have anything at all in the archives when you think that all our records were lost there too, but things, people had things in their homes. As Natalie Hazel wrote, and she said they were salvaged out of paper bags and closets and file drawers, and people just kept piling everything in, and she and her crew put everything together and created the 100-year history of the temple, which hopefully I'm trying to keep up with what's going on since then. Ellen, have you got anything you want to ask me at this point?
No, I think we've covered everything we talked about. What I'd like to do for everyone is, if you have questions or comments, you can put the little hand up on the chat line and I'll just open your mic. That's one option, or I could open everybody's mic, but I don't want people to talk over one another. So does anyone have a question? I'm looking at the, oh, there we go, Ruth does. All right, so Ruth, you're gonna unmute. And
Hi.
go ahead, Ruth.
No, it's Bernie. Ruth's
Bernie,
husband.
okay.
Okay. Although I did not grow up in the temple, I grew up in the center at the time. I recall going to a bar mitzvah in the late 40s of a cousin of mine, Dick Rosenberg. I don't know if you remember him. I think he was between, age-wise, I think he was between you and your sister, Linda. But I recall going to the building on Church and Ashley Street.
I remember Dick and his sister, but I don't remember anyone being bar mitzvahed in the temple that early. In fact, my son Gary was bar mitzvahed there, and in the, I guess it was the late 60s, and he was one of the very first because Sidney Lefkowitz was not big on bar mitzvahs.
But it was an unusual circumstance. I recall everyone was commenting that this was the first bar mitzvah that they'd held there in many, many years at that time. And again, none after that until I think the time when Greenstein was there.
Well, I think Sidney bar mitzvahed Gary, and he was born in 59 and 70, so that was 72, I guess. But it was that was one of the first. I didn't know about Dick. I didn't remember that.
I could probably find it in our old records if I got into the temple and searched up the old records of the early bar mitzvahs.
I was wondering, did anyone else see the temple on Laura and Ashley? Anyone else who's joined us go there? I don't see any hands. Oh wait, Karen, let's unmute Karen. Karen Backelman, you just have to unmute yourself.
Okay.
There you go.
I went to something one time, but I have no memory of what it was. But I know that that's where the temple, I moved to Jacksonville in '69, but I was not a member.
You would have been, yeah, then you would have been in Riverside. It would have been the temple in Riverside.
Yeah, that one. And then we went didn't we went on some kind of trip downtown years ago and saw the other building?
We did a tour of the old the old Jewish neighborhoods downtown.
Yeah, so I did that.
You know, I was thinking there was a period when there was a little house which is now relocated on San Jose Boulevard, which was at the site of the temple, the present temple on San Jose Boulevard. And for a couple of years, at least, all of the business of the temple was done there. And the temple in Riverside was just used for Friday night services and Sunday school. But wasn't that at least 2 years, wasn't it, Hazel?
I don't know. We moved out there, I believe, in the late 1967, 68, I think, when we bought the property. But I don't think we started doing too much with it until the mid 70s.
Oh, well, because I know Gary was bar mitzvah on St. John's Avenue, and that was.
We didn't start having services until 1979 on San Jose.
Yeah, that little house was moved down San Jose Boulevard, and it's on one of the corners there.
It's on DuPont.
Talked about that.
It's
yeah.
on DuPont in San Jose, but the address is DuPont.
Rosie knows where it is. Yeah.
My son's bar mitzvah, my son Andy's bar mitzvah, which was what?
78.
Was the last bar mitzvah held on the Riverside property. And at the time, when we had that little house on San Jose, they'd also built a building which is now the Coleman Room, but then it was called the Temple Activities Building.
Right, right.
And I remember we had a bar mitzvah at Riverside, and they had a lunch over there, the Activities Building. And for a while, we had services actually in that little building there until they finally finished the sanctuary, because we had actually sold the Riverside property. Right. It ended up being apartments.
You know, one of the things regarding various buildings, and I saw Susan Borges put up a comment on there. We took that tour, bus tour of the old Jewish neighborhood, and we were downtown, and we went out to the old cemetery as well as Evergreen. And going around downtown at the time, but there were nothing of the temple left except the YMHA building on what is it, on Adams, on West Adams Street. And at the time, the Jewish Center was still, the buildings, Silver, what is it, Third and Silver, were still standing where they used to be out there. But even that isn't there anymore because that was struck by fire. So there's not too much of the old downtown area left. One thing that I wanted to mention, and it goes back to when the pogroms were held and the families started coming here, and many of the families were, you know, old traditional Jewish faith, or the Orthodox faith. And they started and they built their own synagogue. The B'nai Israel, they built it. They chartered in 1901, but they didn't build their building and weren't dedicated until 1909. And then later, after World War I think the conservative movement started becoming more active, and they were beginning to form a group, and from the members of B'nai Israel. If anybody on here can correct me on this, please do, but from B'nai Israel. And then they built the building at Third and Silver, and it became the Jacksonville Jewish Center. And there were still some Orthodox members who maintained their orthodoxy, and they would hold their services at this building. There was one floor that they would hold the services for the Jewish Center, conservative services, and then on another floor they would have the services for the Orthodox. until they could afford to build their own building. They had a small schoolhouse, I believe, somewhere in that neighborhood. And eventually by 1946, they built their own synagogue on what it help me out here, University, right near where the Mount Carmel Gardens is. And so it was Ed's Heim. They went in there about 1946. So by then, the synagogue at 3rd and Silver was just a Jewish center. And of course, they were there until the 1970s before they built their synagogue out on Crown Point Road. So this is how it has all kind of grown, and we have maintained our congregation and maintained our history as the others have spread out and sought out their own. Ellen, you're looking at me.
You're fine. You're fine. I'm just actually watching this thing flash off and on.
Yeah, anybody else got any questions here?
Anyone have any questions? Any thoughts? I'm going to open up every mic. So just keep that in mind. You're all going to be asked to unmute.
I think Leslie wants to say something.
Leslie, Leslie, open up your mic.
Practically jumping out of her chair.
Can you have to unmute yourself. Leslie, are you able to unmute yourself?
I don't even see her up there.
Yeah, she's here. Leslie's here.
She's here. She needs to know where to click.
She on the right of your name. There you go. Leslie's open. There you go.
I want to ask you something I picked up at the beginning of your explanation information. You said something about Solano Grove. You remember at the beginning? Could you tell me what you said?
It was an area, I would say it's almost probably in what is known as Switzerland. I think that's the area where Frederick Delius had gone to. They called it Solano Grove. It's not where your condominium is. It's called Solano Grove. Down there south in the St. John's area. I don't think it's called that anymore. It could be what is now Switzerland. That I don't know for sure. I mean, I'm just guessing it, but that's the area where he was, where they had the orange groves.
Okay, because I was told this was on an orange grove, and what we're trying to find out if it was a cemetery. I have little visitors come to my house at night, and so does my neighbor. So we were trying to find out that's why I was so surprised when I misunderstood you about it being part of
I don't know. I mean, I may be wrong. I mean, I really don't know. The only information I had was it was called Solano Grove. Perhaps it is where you are. I don't know. That I don't know.
That was considered way out back then.
Yeah.
This was considered way out. Yeah.
Yeah, it was way out. Yeah.
It was. I wrote.
It makes sense that it would have been there.
I wrote a term paper. How would
I find out what was here? Does anyone know?
I don't know. I don't.
The Orange Grove.
Huh?
I don't remember exactly where. I wrote a term paper on Frederick Delius my senior year in high school, and I went out and saw the.
I mean, I've got a picture of his house, of Frederick Delius's house, and it just says in Solano Grove.
Well, there was no Solano Road at that time, and it was just way out in Mandarin.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
you know, but there was nothing out there then.
Right. Well,
It'd be
that's
interesting to follow up on that.
I wondered what was on this property, and when you said Solano Grove, immediately I picked up.
Yeah. That I don't know. Well, you live there. Why don't you tackle finding out just if that's the same place?
But how do I go? Where do I go to find out?
I don't know.
Google it.
There you go.
Google it first.
Yeah. Find out from the city records.
maybe the Jacksonville Historical Society could help you out with that.
That's a good point.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
There's your Rhoda.
There you go.
Alias did something with Jacksonville University. I don't know if I remember going to something about that.
Well, I think his name is well known, and he probably had some of his music. You know, the symphony has played some of his music here in town, and I've seen when I've been there and seen in the program, and I think to myself, I wonder if they really know anything about him when they print that in there about his music. Rhoda.
Rhoda. Oh, we have a chat. Let me see what. I got nothing there. Rhoda, did you want to say anything?
No.
Oh, okay.
Enjoy it while you can, because I always have something to say, don't I?
Well, I'm going to put everyone into view. There's Laura. So everyone but, yeah, Laura's got her mic closed on one. Anyone else want to share? I thought this was really neat, the idea of all these different temples and the fact that non-Jews supported rebuilding the temple and the influence that the original founders had within the city. It was quite impressive, the foundation. And then, as I was talking to Hazel, like how deep the roots go. How today you're looking at people who are generational, descendants of people way back in the beginning. It's quite neat because our family can't say that. You know, we're coming from Europe during all the good times.
Did I understand Linda to say that where her family store was is now the library?
Right.
The library. And when you think about it, we have City Hall and May Cohen's. I mean, we really were busy in downtown Jacksonville with Jewish merchants.
Yes,
Many,
Absolutely.
very many.
Very influential.
and they were very supportive of the temple, as I mentioned earlier, because it's something I didn't realize until I read Beatrice Pizer's history, as well as Dawson Oppenheimer, and they talk about how the city and the members had contributed to the merchants had contributed funds to help build the first synagogue. So
now, One Jacks, wasn't that founded by the temple over 1 year ago under a different name?
Well, yes, that was
we'll get into that. We'll get into that.
It was Christians and Jews.
Rabbi Kaplan
started that.
Rabbi Kaplan
Linda,
started.
wasn't that called the Organization of Christians and Jews?
Yeah,
It was part of a national part of a national organization.
The National Conference of Christians and Jews.
Yeah.
The National Conference of Community Justice, and included other religious organizations, and from that it went into One Jacks. But that's another discussion when we talk about Rabbi Kaplan. We can get into it then.
Right. Well, Rabbi Kaplan really started a Thanksgiving service with the downtown congregations.
1918.
There was one thing I just wanted to add, because we're talking about people contributing to the temple when it burned down. And, this is part of Jacksonville, because when Hendricks Avenue Baptist Church burned down, the whole community went in and contributed, and I'm sure a lot of people from the temple did, and I know we did.
Yeah.
And so that speaks for the interfaith community.
And also we invited them to use our building for their services.
Right.
That goes back to the services at St. John and Mallory, when there was a church up at the corner of Mallory and Riverside that was undergoing some work in their building. Right. They used to come and have their services on Sunday at our temple. Mm-hmm. And somewhere hanging in the lobby of our congregation is a picture that is a composite of our temple and their church combined together, and it looks kind of strange because you see the front of the temple, but then you see this big red brick building attached to it, and that was not what our temple looked like. But it's a composite, and it was a tribute given to the temple by that church. And
those Thanksgiving services talks about Christians and Jews, but what about our African American community? What's our history with them?
Well, they were in there too. We had because they were the Christians.
They weren't in the beginning.
Not in the beginning, but later on, we've had services at their churches. I can remember a service at a black church right here on Hendricks Avenue, not too long ago.
But going now back how far is what I'm curious.
Bernie Nachman was the last president of the temple in Riverside, and then Chuck Oberdorfer came. It was moved to the south side, but he was the president during all the planning of everything to move the temple to south side.
I have a question. The church that was near the temple on Mallory Street, was that the Unitarian church?
No, it wasn't a Unitarian church.
Because there was a Unitarian right near there.
Unitarian church was on St. John's Avenue, right down the street
right
from
near
the temple. The one in back of it, I think, was Methodist.
No, Riverside Presbyterian.
It was Riverside
Presbyterian, they said. Okay, thanks.
No, it wasn't. Riverside Presbyterian is down by 5 points. The one that was right.
Oh, yeah, right.
Was not Riverside Presbyterian.
That's the big one across from the park in near 5 Points.
Right.
What one did you say, Linda? What was
Riverside Presbyterian is at 5 Points. I was a Girl Scout there. And
but you think
the one in back of the temple, I thought was Methodist.
Maybe so.
But I know Sidney Lefkowitz and the minister of that temple were very good friends.
Well, he was very active in the community, in the religious community in Jackson.
Susan, on the tour on St. John's, there was a modern condominium building.
That's what has happened.
That's the one that's
building. It's a condominium that now has the building. They just redid it. The outside is similar. As a matter of fact, they up at on the front.
10 Commandments are still up the top.
Yeah, it's the Torah.
Those are left from
up in there.
Remind me again why that condominium building has those artifacts, the Jewish star and whatever.
Why didn't we bring?
No, I don't think they do. They just have the concrete
thing on the
wall facing that's on St. John's Avenue. That particular side of the building up at the very top is the carving. It's the Torah.
The Torah.
That's what I'm asking. Why? I don't remember why. I mean, historical condominium. Is that commemorating because it's on the side of where that big house was that burned down, or what?
Carved into the concrete, and they just never took it out. Alan, can you find that picture? St. John's Gallery. It'd be after the home.
Hold on, this one.
No, one before that.
There it is.
You can't see it. It's behind the trees. It's right up in the very top. They're under the eaves. You can't see it.
Oh, behind the tree.
I'm talking about that. Is that the condominium building now?
Yes.
Yes.
They've taken over.
Oh, okay. That's
Stairs up there. That's all raised, and it's a parking lot. And as a matter of fact, every time I go by, I see something a little different. But this whole area where the doors are and the windows up above, you always could see the outline of where that was. You look at it, and they cover it over again and repaint it. And now they're put trees in front of there. They're planting trees in that front. So I don't know whether when they grow, whether you'll be able to see the Torah up there or not. But it's still there. If you drove by on St. John's Avenue at the corner of Mallory, and you'll see it.
Okay.
Hazel, did we take those windows
Yes, those windows are in our current building. Show us the
Right.
next picture,
I
Ellen.
was just confirming, so the building still exists, but it's
Yes.
repurposed.
Those windows, Ellen is showing you where the 4 windows are. There's 2 down below in the sanctuary
Yeah,
and 2
that
up
I
there
get.
over in the choir loft.
I just was confirming about that condo. So it's the same building, but
It's the same
repurposed?
building. They've just redone it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Well, I want to let everyone know we've run our hour, and this was quite nice. It was really nice, Linda, to have you give us those stories.
Wonderful.
Yes, thank you, Linda.
So
Don't
we'll
tell,
be
You, Linda.
don't tell David Stein I told you that.
dropping the books. Yeah. But we'll be back with Hazel on the 29th. We do this again in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
On the 29th, so I hope you're back.
Thank you, Hazel.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hazel. It's very interesting.
Thank you, Ellen, and everyone who contributed.
I like having the visual aids. That helped a lot.
What time?
2 o'clock. Always at 2.
Leslie, you have an assignment.
Yes.
I left. I get assignment as soon as I leave.
Yeah, there you go.
Ellen,
What's
Yes.
the assignment?
Ellen, I want to close. I've got something I want to close with.
Okay, Hazel on
Oh, okay.
Let me
Okay.
get this to Hazel. There you go.
Say to close.
Go
And then-
ahead.
No, okay. I read this, and we've lived through the Civil War, and we've had major fires, and we've had major illnesses and death caused by yellow fever epidemics. In 1857, we saw half our Jewish population fall to this tragedy. In 1888, another yellow fever epidemic struck Jacksonville. The Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, deadliest in history, killed over 675,000 Americans. Now we're in another deadly pandemic of COVID-19, but this too we will survive. We've survived everything. Recently, I just saw an old movie.
Jezebel.
Jezebel. It took place in New Orleans in the 1830s when they were going through their yellow fever epidemic. So that was a fever that spread up to what we had in 1857, our first yellow fever epidemic. So we will continue. And everything we have will be preserved in the archives. See you in 2 weeks.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to turn us off. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.